welcome back to Climb to Your Prime with Dr. Heim. This is your monthly live Q&A with the one, the only Dr. Christian Heim, all the way from the land down under. And as usual, Doctor, welcome to the show. As always, this is your home, this is your show, and we got a set of questions for you, and hopefully we're going to enlighten people and answer some of their questions. And again, we've always said this. Mental health is big and it's a huge thing. It's part of our life. And I think we need a lot more of that work today. And Dr. Heim does take the time, literally, to give us some of the good nuggets to tackle life, what it's worth, right? And, so that's about it. We're live on Instagram. We're live on YouTube. We are also live on TikTok right now. So, yeah, that just put us some comments and you can interact with us live and we can certainly respond now. But we do have a series of questions that are already available to us that the doctor is going to be responding to. Doctor, welcome to the show, man.
Thank you very much, Hurricane. It's always good to be here. And a few changes for you by the sounds of things.
Yeah. It looks like I got a different backdrop. As you noticed, I think everybody's like, where is this dude? Still the same place, just no green screen right now. So that's all.
That's fine.
The magnitude of what green screen can do. I mean, it's amazing. Like you can change the sets. On TikTok, I have a great background actually. You're not on it, and just me, so people can listen. And hopefully, if I see any comments there or questions, I can interact with them. But I have a nice little tiki bar, umbrella right by turquoise water. So that's my background there. So it's just a different setup. But yeah, so that's it. Doctor, how things actually in the land down under these days?
It's raining a lot, but otherwise, if that's the biggest news, things are not too bad. I mean, no, we're part of the world too, Hurricane. So the things that happen in the world happen in our backyard because more and more we're sharing things because we are becoming something of a global village. So we're part of the world too.
Well, it is a global village. I mean, really, we are live. You can tune into any channel and, or streams or whatever. I mean, you go anywhere. You're going to be able to see anything that's happening in real time, South hemisphere, North hemisphere, East, West, doesn't matter where. If it's happening, people can tune in right there. I mean, radio is one thing, but I'm talking live feeds. I mean, are happening everywhere, which can bring us closer and also bring the news and good and bad otherwise to everyone. But hey, it is what it is, and it does impact our mental health. So somehow, somewhere, sadly, I mean, just I don't know if you followed any of the news here in the States, but we've had so many recent shootings and things like that. I mean, it's just sad. I mean, it's violence is still a big gear. I mean, still have wars out there. I mean, I hope that the world is a better place. That's all, and hopefully we'll make a difference slowly but surely, Doctor. That's all.
That's what we're about, to try to make the world a better place just a little bit, Hurricane, in our sphere of influence. And that's what we're here about.
Sir. All right. Well, so Doctor, are we ready for our questions while we await for anyone to join us? And again, folks, we are live, and this is your monthly talk show live with Dr. Heim. So you can go to YouTube or Instagram, plug in your comments or questions. I can relay them to Doctor. And if they're on Instagram, or actually if they're on YouTube, I can place them right on the screen here, or vice versa, or Instagram as well. So whatever, if you feel that you have a question, don't be shy. This is your time. I mean, it's amazing how people are not, I don't know, I guess brave enough to get in front of someone and asking questions about mental health, because it is that. But I do have a question about that actually on the queue. So we'll talk about that in a minute. All right, so Doctor, I'm gonna go with the first question, which I think it's gonna, be a general question for a lot of people. All right, here it goes. So why being rich is the fixation of most people? Everyone wants to have the most money. James, Orlando.
Okay, thanks for your question, James. So the question that you put, James, actually goes to the heart of human nature. It actually doesn't have too much to do with money, but the thing about money is, aside from the idea that we can buy what we want, we can do more of what we want, the obsession with money probably has to do with a few things. As a psychiatrist, I'll talk about what's going on in human nature, and that is that there is something in us that's very competitive. And because we can measure money, because we know that you can put a number on it, It means that if you've got more of it, you feel that you're doing better, whatever better means. Now, the thing is that our society is also structured so that having more money means that you're able to do more things. And the point of society, in a sense, is to be able to make life better for us. But again, it comes back to this question of what does better actually mean? And so if you start looking at money as simply a means of exchange, just a something that we need so that we can exchange things, buy and sell, be part of society, then I think you start putting money in its place. The idea of having an identity where you're doing better as a person or feel better about yourself because you have money is behind what James's question actually is. And James, I got to tell you, it's such a huge question that I really don't know in which direction to go, except to say that it's got to do with our sense of identity and the feeling of doing better as a person because you have more money. Although I will say this, James, there's a very strange relationship between money and happiness. So studies, and these studies are from about 10 years ago, to show that for each household, so think of a household as a group of people, perhaps a family, as long as that household has enough money to have food on the table and basically all obligations met and have enough left over for a modest holiday every year, above and beyond that, money doesn't actually add to your happiness, which means that over and above about $100,000 in the USA in today's terms per household, not per person, that's about it as far as money adding to your happiness. So that means that all the rest of us that are trying to do more than that are actually doing something more than just happiness. And the obsession has to do, I believe, with identity and a sense of competition.
Well, thank you, Doc. So, but this is not. I don't think it's a new thing in human history. I mean, money has always been a fixation throughout, the centuries, right? From the beginning.
Yeah.
It's always about accumulation, how much wealth you have, gold. I mean, gold. I guess I don't know, endeavors, journeys, quests, you name it, conquests. I mean, wars. I mean, gold and money and wealth in general has been a big thing for humanity. I mean, to be honest with you, the question to me is as you said, it's a very big one and vast, in terms of its context. I mean, but it is, you see that a lot today. I mean, I think there's another question down, later today or the next one, similar to this one. But, we see that people are competing to show off, which, people are also almost attaching the money to success, as you said, not so much happiness. It's like it's almost becoming synonymous to, if you have money, you're successful. And, is that really the measure of success? And to your point, happiness, what is that also? I mean, sometimes, you can be happy without having money. As there is a sense of satisfaction when you have the means to do things and you can do a lot more. But I personally have seen people with very little money that are super happy. They're more generous than people that have the money. I mean, it's just a unique phenomenon, but I've seen that in real life, especially when you travel around the world. You see a lot more. Maybe if you get out of the wealthier countries and you go to maybe not so wealthy countries, you see some of these, I guess, folks that have very low means, but yet their hearts and their arms are open and they're smiling despite all the limitations that they may have, and they're not really into stuff. Now, of course, today with social media and everything, it's becoming an effect problem because people are seeing things that they can't afford. Back in the days, you couldn't see all this stuff, live, and nobody's flexing unless somebody drives by wherever you are. You're not going to be, intimidated or even attached to whatever they have. Like maybe like, oh, I want to have that. Sometimes people get envious. Sometimes they get jealous. Sometimes it forces them to do bad things. Whether it's stealing and stuff, and maybe even get into a life of crime and illegal stuff, right? So it's a very interesting question because it's pretty. A lot of people can relate to it one or the other. Now, someone could say, well, Hurricane, money is everything, to some maybe. And I actually, sometimes I criticize some people that are just oh, the more you have this, the more you have that, the more you have this. I mean, listen, I'm not against it. I like capitalism to a degree. It's fine. You can have some, you can have a lot of it. Just how you use it is one, and how you deal with it is another. What do you think, Doc?
Yeah, so because the question is so big, Hurricane, maybe we've got to put some limits on the question. Because seriously, so when we're talking about money, it's straight away an economic question rather than a psychiatric question. But when it comes to an individual's relationship with money, then we start talking about the psychology of money and what it has to do with the mind. With mental illness, money, when I think about money, I think about funding for hospitals and funding for people who need help with mental illness. That's the way that I think about money the most. When it comes to individual desires and individual values, that becomes another area that we could talk about. Or we could talk about, as you said, the history old obsession that we have with money and why that actually is. And I suppose that's why I wanted to spend some time talking about identity, the idea that if we have more money, then we that we actually feel better about ourselves. But the thing, Hurricane, is if you and I can say that money doesn't make you happy, and that's a message that the studies show, and that's a message that you were talking about, how poorer people are actually happier. And if you and I know these things, that means that the rest of the world actually knows these things as well. And yet we still go on with some sort of an obsession with money. So it really is where we want to go with this question and what parameters we're going to put on it.
Well, thank you. I mean, thank you for kind of closing in on it. But really, I think it's more of the impact of it, right? The mental, impact of it. Whether it's really, you have to have. I mean, the quest of massive wealth, right? Is that going to change? Is that going to impact your mental state? I mean, some people, they get so obsessed that they turn against everybody, think beyond everyone. Sometimes they get into a power trip and looking down on others. Sometimes it's the reverse. People have no money. They tend to, again, as mentioned, jealous and stuff, and they may be reactive. As you said, it's also an identity. I have more. I can show off. People look up to me, and so on and so forth. I mean, and by the way, rich here can be, I guess it's more emphasis on the money itself. I think that's really, as you said, the identity piece is something. But you're right. I mean, people do have metrics, if you want to call it that way, around them to see, like, money doesn't make people happy. It could, and some people are sad because they don't have money, because they can afford food, basic stuff, healthcare. But I think the impact of that, right? So a lack of means sometimes does impact how we eat, and maybe that affects your mind and your health, right? Your mental status. You maybe get into drugs and stuff. You maybe get into arguments. Maybe relationships get affected. Maybe you are difficult with your family, right? So it does impact a lot mentally. It's a challenging question in itself.
It is, but it's only one aspect of life. Money is just money. And I suppose if your identity has a lot to do with wanting money, and I suppose if you're in a society that values money a lot, then it'll start to become more important to you. And the question then becomes, how can I actually limit the impact that money has on the mind? Because I suppose one of the things that we're assuming underneath is that the impact of money, or our obsession with money, is a negative thing. And then the question comes, why is it a negative thing if money is the means through which you can actually do things and achieve things through life? Because money can be quite useful.
Mm-hmm.
It's really what you do with it and how you share it around and how you contribute to society through money, either by putting together business ventures or being able to give it away in charities, that actually makes the difference. In fact, there was one very interesting study that showed that if people were given $100 just off the bat, here, have $100, what would you like to do with it? the people who kept it actually added to their happiness less than the people who said, I'm just going to give this away to charity. So that's a very interesting thing too, that in a way, the ability to give and the ability to help other people out actually resulted in more lasting happiness for the person themselves than keeping the money itself. So, but that's only using money as an example of what can be done with it. Money itself is just money.
Well, doctor, yeah, I mean, it's just a tool, it's a means to an end, right? And again, to your point, it's how you use it. I mean, if you use it good, I mean, you certainly can do a lot great. I mean, you mentioned business ventures or, like a show or whatever. I mean, you can contribute, you can write a book, you can do a lot of things. You can help people, you can open a clinic, you can open, a place, where people can come in and have a shelter, whatever. There's so many things you can do. But at the same time, as you said, it depends on what you use. Some people have such a lavish life that, sometimes they don't even do any of that. They just enjoy life, which, by the way, I'm not against them. To each his own. People choose how they live their life. That's okay. And how they use their money. But again, it is just a tool. As you said, they can use it also for bad things, spending on drugs. And we've seen people who have massive wealth that turn out, sick, through drug addiction and other things, and even suicide, there's stories out there, so it's kind of interesting. By the way, there's a question I want to just go right into, because I think it will kind of tie into the social aspect of things. So let me just go to that one right now. And here we go. So, Dr. Heim, many people find themselves constantly comparing their lives to what they see on social media. How does this kind of comparison affect mental health, and what are some practical ways to protect themselves from it? That's multiple pieces. Agnes, France.
Agnes is from France. How wonderful. Okay. So it's very interesting, Hurricane, because as Agnes was asking that question as to why we make these comparisons on social media, it made me think that perhaps one of our predilections of money is because we are living in a society that is driven by money. Because Agnes's question as to why do we make comparisons on social media, and it's because we live in a society that is valuing social media at the moment. So for me, perhaps the broader question is, knowing that we are part of a society and knowing that society values money and values social media, the question then becomes, why do we as individuals then become obsessed with this? And it gets us to the point where we have the opportunity to talk about what we actually value as individuals, because it's not always the case, and nor should it always be the case, that we value what society values. So I'm going to say something really dumb, and that is that 50 years ago, people didn't have this problem with social media and nobody valued social media. Now, I know that social media only came to rise in the late 1990s and the early 21st century. But just imagine if we had that technology and nobody actually valued it. Then we wouldn't need to protect ourselves from social media. Because our brains has a strong self-identity, but it's also very persuaded by everything that's going on around us. So we have this relationship with society, so that we have to decide if we actually agree with the direction that society is going, and whether we agree with valuing the things that society actually values. So one of the ways through Agnes's question is that we don't actually have to value social media. You can actually say, "No, I don't like it. I don't want to be there." You can actually do that. And that's actually very protective. But even the way that you laughed there, Hurricane, lets me know how difficult it is to actually say that, because it sounds so absurd to do that. But as individuals, we have to keep that right, that ability to make a decision to say, I want to be part of it, or maybe I don't want to be a part of it.
Well, doctor, thank you, and I'm laughing because, it's funny. I just posted something earlier, just a repost, but it's about how today's society was like a reel about how we are chained to our phones, and everybody is like clueless about what's going on, and they just, it's becoming an obsession. And It is difficult today. I mean, I guess there is a higher value to it. A lot of people, you're right. We can't. We're in control. We talked about this before. Everybody can make a difference in how they behave and this stuff. And in the case of Australia, we talked about how they are even. I think that's becoming a law in the early of 2026. Where they have to limit, all these platforms age limits, for whoever gets in. So that's a pretty thing. I mean, so not only we individuals can do that, but governments can also kind of contribute to that level of control and hopefully giving us that. But it is difficult because of what it is. I mean, it is addictive. The science proves it. You've demonstrated a few times that, and again, but it is a fixation as on the first question about money and all this stuff, right? People want what other people, and it's really big marketing. I mean, companies use influencers. I mean, you mentioned something about influence earlier. Influencers are doing just that. They get approached, they get an offer here, promote this, and you'll get percentage, or you get whatever, a fee for whatever you do. And it's like, it's the same concept as sponsorships, right? In the old days on TV, you get an ad, right? Somebody pays it so we can promote it, and now you have a lot more of it, just more accessible. So it's kind of very difficult. But you're right. It is something that can be controlled. We can say no to it. But I'm laughing because how many people out there are going to say no to it? Again, it's going to
Yeah.
take a lot. It's a challenge.
Yeah, it is. It's a very big challenge. And I just want to stay with this challenge for a while because there are the decisions that we make as individuals, but there are also the decisions that we make as a society. And both are important. And just because it's my particular work, I tend to emphasize what we can do as an individual, because as a psychiatrist, when somebody's sitting in my office and they're depressed or anxious, we're not going to be able to change the laws of Australia, but we are going to be able to change some of the decisions that that individual can actually make. But I just want to go with a good news story that happened this week in Japan that illustrates this point. Because as you were talking about how Australia is bringing in these laws so that children under the age of 16 will not be allowed on social media platforms. That is, they won't be allowed to have an account on it. So in Japan, there is a city by the name of Aisai, which has passed a law to say that it is illegal to be on your iPhone for more than 2 hours per day. Now, this is 2 hours on top of what you need for your study or for your work, but you're not allowed to just be alone with your phone for more than 2 hours a day. And there's been a lot of reaction to this law
I
because
can
the
think of
first thing people say, this is ridiculous, right? You won't be able to implement it. And they said, yeah, we don't actually want to implement it. We're not going to fine anybody for breaking this law. And they said, well, then why make the law? And the town mayor actually said, so that people know that we do not value this, so that we can say that it is against the law because this is bad for you as a person, so that as society, our value is against this. Now, I think that's actually quite clever because the Australia social media ban, for example, is getting criticized because people say, well, it won't work. You can't enforce it. And that's actually true. But that's not the point. The point is to say, this is what we as a society value. And in a sense, the Australian government has said that we as a society are valuing the welfare of our children above commercial interests. And the town of Aisai in Japan is saying we are valuing, saying that spending so much time on iPhone is detrimental to your mental health. And that goes a little bit to explaining to Agnes how we can be protected, because there are two arms of protection that we need from things that go on in society. One is the decisions that we can make ourselves, but then there is the society level, which has to do with the laws that we make, which reflect what we as a society value. Trouble is, laws tend to be behind what is going out there in society, but better late than never.
Well, no, doctor, I mean, by the way, I was laughing because to your point, I was thinking about like, how do you even control and police that, right? Because it's a limited time. It's not like you can switch the internet for them, right? The Wi-Fi. But the idea is, as you said, it's clever because the fact that you throw it out there, right?
Yes,
Some people may just buy into the concept. I mean, it's so
yes,
it becomes part of a balance thing, right? Yeah, am I doing this? Some people will see like, okay, I think I can do this, and they can lean towards it, and some people are going to be totally reactive because again, it's like going to someone who's a drug addict, and you're going to tell them like you can't have the drugs. We got to. I mean, it just doesn't work that way. I mean, you know this. I mean, it's addiction is very difficult, and there's a
yes,
process to weed out of it.
yes,
So you just can't tell people like, okay, we're shutting this down. I mean, even in you mentioned in Australia, the critics and all the stuff because of the law. Now, obviously, the new generation that has not been there yet will probably accustom themselves better with a low like that than the ones that already been affected by it. Yeah, it's like a bug, right? You got the bug, it's a little, your body, it's kind of weak, right? The new ones have little immunity, so they might have better, shot at it. But I mean, it is a great concept. I mean, to me, it's like family, right? You can. You talked about, I think I've seen it even around that there are restaurants where you don't bring your phone, you drop it or whatever. Some places, you cannot bring, even some business places where you cannot bring your phone to a room, a conference room, whatever. So there are things that are happening where people are creating these little, I guess, buffers or
yes,
blockades, around the concept. But it is difficult. I mean, people are sleeping with it. And by the way, the medical space, right? There's a lot of talk about the frequency, the blue rays that come out of your phones, all the stuff, and all
yes,
the damage that it's doing to your health. I mean, the people that are savvy and they health kind of wise, mentally and physically, they tend to see it. They can, to a certain point, control it, but not everybody's capable of that. That's some people are weaker than others. Some are stronger than others in terms of their will and ability. Now, also there's content, right? Some people are really using it for progressive stuff, learning and this and the other, and some people are using it for junk, and it just kind of accumulates more junk in the
yes,
mind of bad stuff, right? So it is again, the social media is the topic of the hour, just like AI, and by the way, there's now SI with synthetic, intelligence, which is going to be the next level. I mean, it's just we get in, bombarded with this stuff, but it's all good stuff, and it depends how you look at it, the angle, right? But you as a professional in the psychology, right? I mean, these are all things that have changed the way people and the behavior of humans. I mean, we are not the same, as you said, since the invention of the phones and all this stuff. We're completely devastated.
yes, and I suppose we need to know how powerfully we impact each other. So there's this phenomenon that happens, and I'll use the example of a group of teenagers that decide to go out and see a movie, and they decide to see a really scary movie, and it scares them all to death. And then afterwards, when they've had nightmares for a week, they get together and they talk and they say, well, I didn't really want to see the movie, but because everybody else did, I went along. And then the other person says, well, I didn't really want to see the movie, but because everybody else did, I went along. And then the other person says, well, wait, I didn't want to see the movie, but because everybody else did, I went along as well. And it turns out that nobody actually wanted to see the movie, but because everybody thought everybody else wanted to see the movie, they don't want to be the spoil sport. And there's a possibility that we're in a space like that with social media, because a lot of people are doing a lot of things that, quite frankly, they think that everybody likes, but it's not really such a great idea. In fact, in the USA now, they're having summer camps for adults between the ages of 30 and 40 just to do things like swimming, playing board games, and meeting people without social media, because you know what? That's what was really fun. And so there's a possibility that all of our society have gone along with a really good technology, which afforded us a lot of opportunity and a lot of instant gratification, if you like. But there's a lot of people, Hurricane, that are sort of realizing that, you know what, this is actually a problem in my life. We just don't know how to get rid of it. And perhaps if we all decided to turn up to the movie and say, you know what, I don't want to see this horror movie. It's like saying, you know what, I don't want to spend all this time on social media. Can we get together and just talk? And I'm using that as a glib example, but society is like that because we have such strong influences on each other that none of us want to pike out.
Well, doctor, thank you for bringing that. I mean, by the way, there's a few examples of that, and they did a lot of experiments even with monkeys and other things, and not to compare us to monkeys, but there have been studies about doing one behavior, and everybody that comes up later, they just whatever the behavior, they just take it. They don't even know the story behind it, and so on and so forth. And it is an amazing concept, as you said. But the thing, this goes up to the idea of people are always, there's more followers than leaders. People do not have the, I guess, the bravery or the audacity to speak up sometimes, and they just go with the flow. I mean, if that was the case, everybody would be challenging everybody, right? I mean,
Well,
it's
that's right.
always like
That's exactly right. Yes.
sad. I mean, again, I think the concept is that people, they tend to like, oh, I'm not going to be the spoiled brat and making the doomsday here, and just be the odd one, right? So I'm going to go with the flow. And I mean, gently we can do it. Sometimes you can give a different suggestion. I mean, there's ways to do this, but again, not everybody is mature enough to that level. And I'm talking about maturity here in terms of all ages. It's not about being younger or older. It's just, I guess, emotional, maturity. It's a little different, for a lot of us. And by the way, I'm not 100%, mature. Nobody, I think, is
No.
in this planet, because we all have our own weaknesses, our own things. Even, but we have tools that we can use. And again, something like, what I've been learning from Dr. Hyde personally, and this is just my reflection, and I always say it, has helped me a great deal in a lot of things that I do in my life. And I use some of the techniques that he has shared with us over the years. And you know what? There's nothing wrong with that, to kind of balance your life. Yes, we do a lot of stuff. Listen, this is funny. I mean, we are on social media. We actually value social media for the work we
Yeah,
do.
that's right.
And there's nothing wrong with it. I actually share a lot of stuff on a day-to-day basis. I just choose positivity content that is good for the mind and the body. And there are some things that are entertaining. I also watch them every now and then. The thing is, like, you can't find yourself. I mean, there's a lot of studies about successful people. They're not spending time, like, what the excuse, like, I don't have time. People are spending a lot of hours on scrolling up and down or watching Netflix or whatever, and they say, I don't have time to go to the gym. I don't have time to do this. I don't have time to do business or whatever. Spend 2 hours a day building, your next move, whatever you do on your career path or your
Yeah.
second hustle. And now you're a couple of months later, you can be a millionaire, and now you have all the money, to answer the first question, right? And get all the stuff that you want. So it is a challenging, concept. I mean, humans are very unique in the way we do things. And yes, there's psychology in everything that we are bombarded with. So it's how we deal with it. I think,
Yeah.
that times work does change that for us.
Yes, that's exactly right. And this goes a little bit to the heart of Agnes's question as to why we make these comparisons and what happens on social media to make those comparisons. So, Hurricane, we're doing this show right now, okay? And look, I'm wearing a jacket and a white shirt, and my hair's looking okay. If Agnes saw me an hour ago, I did not look anywhere near this good, right? I was unshaven, my hair was unkempt, I had a tattered t-shirt on. Then I thought I'd better get ready for the show. And the thing is, this is what social media does. It has a level of appearances that we all meet to be on the show. And because of that, what we're actually doing, Agnes, is we're comparing the appearances that we get from social media with people's real lives. Okay. And because it's an appearance and image driven medium, we start to think that the image is real. Now, one of the reasons that I told you that I looked a mess about an hour ago, Agnes, is so that you can sort of imagine me unshaven, my hair all over the place, and wearing a tattered t-shirt. Okay. And of course, there's nothing wrong with that, but I wouldn't go and do the show looking like that. And that's where the problems begin. And yet that's not a problem. That's the way it should be. Well, yeah, because that's professionalism. But the human mind can be tricked. The human mind can start to be enamored with appearances rather than realities. And so one of the things to remind ourselves about is that people post about when they're having a great time, when they're out with friends. They hardly post when they've just had an argument with their spouse, or they're all alone and they're crying. They're the sort of things that don't get posted. So we end up making comparisons with people's best moments all over the place. And we wonder why we don't have those best moments, whereas other people's best moments are about as numerous as your best moments. And this is the problem. When we get together as people, we're able to share our real moments just a little bit more.
Well, first of all, Doctor, I have not seen you in any other shape than nicely, spiffed up, looking good, suit on and all this stuff. So it'd be hard to visualize you, but I'm sure you're just like everybody else. You have your own life, and you kind of.
Hurricane, it's not a pretty sight. Believe me, it's not a pretty sight. You don't want to see it. But that's the thing. Yeah. So we've known each other for years, and you have never seen me unshaven, right? Okay. You've never seen my hair all over the place because the context of how we meet has to do with what we're doing here, right? But I'm a human being. I know that you're a human being. I know that you've got good and bad moments, just like I do. But it doesn't come across on social media. And so when the reality gets distorted simply by the medium, that's where the problems begin.
Well, thank you. And again, by the way, this is a real thing, as you said, Doc. Uh, People show their best moments because I think that's what it is. It's like they're going to have but it's not every day. That's not something that they do. When they post the reel, that's one moment in the 24 hours. The rest of it may not look like that, and that's just the way it is. We need to know that. I mean, by the way, I don't do a lot of posts on personal, my personal stuff is because it's all network related. But even when I do, some of it is just me and family doing things. But you're right. I'm never gonna be like we're having a discussion with my kids or my family, and we're gonna be taking that. I mean, maybe I was thinking actually about doing a reality show. That might come up later.
Oh,
You know,
okay, okay. They're the worst, Hurricane, because reality shows are less real than what we're even doing here. Okay, they're all a construction of real. So part of the message is to be really real. So I actually had somebody, this is a few years ago now, who came into my office, and one of her chief complaints was, for the first time in a decade, the number of friends that she had went under 200. And she was in tears about this, and she didn't know what to do about it. And I said, well, I'd like to help you with that. And she said, how are you going to help me? And I said to her, I'd like to get the number of friends that you have to under 10. And she looked devastated. And I said, yeah, but I want these 10 friends to be people that you actually see in real life, in flesh and blood, and have talks with on a weekly basis. And she goes, what do you mean? I said, when do you see all these 200 friends of yours? And she says, I see them on whatever social media platform sort of every week. And I say, but do you actually see them? Do you actually interact with them? And of course, the answer is no. All right. Now, my number of friends, because I'm a crummy kind of a guy, is actually under about 5. All right. But those 5 people, man, they're friends here. Okay. And there's nothing wrong with having 200 friends. There's nothing wrong with having 2,000 followers. Just make sure you've got those 5 people that will stay by you when you're even a crummy person. Okay. Get the 5 in place before you go for the 2,000.
well, Doctor, thank you so much. This is going to be a perfect segue to the next question. But I do want to just add something to that. By the way, in my life, I have thousands of acquaintances or
Yeah.
people that I know. I mean, from work, 30 years plus in the career path. I mean, you do make quite a bit of friendship there. But the real friends that I would call like brothers, right?
Yeah.
That's 3, and they're really 3. I mean, and they're basically one from my yeah, one from my high school, one from
Yeah.
my college days, and one from my work space for the last 30 years, 28 years. And we became more than brothers. I'm an only child, so I have no brothers. So they became my brothers, literally.
Wow.
And so these are the folks that I can confine with, and they know everything about you. You don't have to hide from them your secrets, your personal life. I mean, they know, and they'll share the same. If it's bad, up and down, it's okay. You can talk to them. They're your sounding board. But you're right. I think the comparison between, and by the way, that's the next question. So let me go to that question because I think it's going to
Sure.
tie into this. So let's see. Here we go. While it seems that we're more connected than ever, loneliness is on the rise. Why is social disconnection such a big driver of mental health struggles, and what can people do to feel less isolated? Mary Montreal.
Okay. Mary from Montreal. Mary, what you're saying is totally real. And Look, sometimes it sounds like that I'm down on society, but I'm actually not. I see all of this as a side effect of a very good society. So let's just take the number of people living in the same household. In the 1930s, studies show that the average American household had about 6 people in a household. By the time we got to the 60s, it was down to about 4. Now the average household is just over 2. And in many big cities in the USA, the percentage of people that are living alone is starting to creep around the 30-40% mark. Now, all of that is just a side effect of a country that is doing better, because when we do better, it means that we can have more space, which means that we can have more of our own places. And over the decades, except for the last one, quite frankly, every generation has been able to get its own space and have more of its own household, which means that there are less people to each household. And one of the things about affluence also is that we like to be in control of our own spaces, which means that there are less people in each space as well. So the upshot is that just doing well, prospering in life, means that we're not living in overcrowded houses. But it also means that we're lonelier. And it also means that although we're more connected, as you say, Mary, it seems that we're more disconnected because of the whole idea that once you have a brick in front of you that you just look at all the time, and I'm talking about a smartphone, it means that your eye contact goes nowhere else, which means that the people that you would normally be connected with around you, you are less connected with. There are now meal times and parties where people are actually watching their phone rather than other people. And we've been over all of this before. But the thing is, it's the engagement. Right now, I'm looking at a computer screen. And on the computer screen, I can see Hurricane, I can see myself, but my eyes and my ears are engaged with nobody else. And it used to be at work that we were engaged with dozens of people around us, whereas the modern workplace is a whole lot of individuals engaged with a screen, which means that we are engaging as humans less and less. And Mary, this is what seems to be connect through the screens, which is leading to real life disconnect.
Well, Doctor, thank you. And this is something that we've tackled a couple of times at different angles. But you're right. I mean, you're at work. I mean, back in the days, you would leave work, right, and you go to do you go to the gym, you socialize, you do a few things, you go at night, hang out with friends. I mean, from Thursday to Sunday, it's party time, so people go everywhere, have dinners, and stuff. And there was no other distraction. You're there with the crowd. Whoever you with them, right? It's I still see this and I've seen it and it drives me nuts all the time. And sometimes I feel, I fell into it myself. We're sitting around the table, everybody picks up their phone. I get mad, like, put the damn phones down. I mean, it's really like, what's the point? I mean, it's like we're together or we're not together. I mean, right? That's what it is.
That's right.
But people are so comfortable with it. They just get into that head. I mean, everybody's got that neck now. Everybody's like looking down. Actually, that's becoming, I think it's a diagnosis now. Literally people have this neck deformation because they're constantly looking down, and they even created some of these devices where you can have your screen up. But it is becoming a problem. But also, to your point, we are connected with a lot of people, but disconnected with the ones that may matter more because they're the ones that are close to you. I love what you said, Doctor, about the idea of how we were living I mean, families were together, I mean, in generations, in households, as you said, and because of the rent, because of the properties, they couldn't afford to have more, places. By the way, it's still happening in countries where the resources or the financials are less. So people still like, and by the way, I can say this. This is something that I was told a long time ago by a French person, because we were having a discussion about, like, how in Morocco, for example, families are tighter, and all it takes is one person to work, and everybody can be supported, right? So I mean, and I mean, it's not the ideal context or ideal life form, but people live for generations, where someone or a couple people can support the whole family and everybody's happy. And sometimes even people get married in this day. And by the way, you said something interesting. They said the last decade is different. we are seeing more kids going back to their homes and to their parents because they can't afford to live on
Yes.
their own now. So it's amazing how that tradition that we've had back in the days in let's say my homeland, right? That was something that was actually a practice that people like, like people could still survive and help each other even with low means because they chime in together and everybody
Yes.
does something. And now we don't have that, right? And by the way, even by the way, this was I left home 33 years ago, and I can tell you that's changed there too. I talk to my cousins and stuff. They don't even see each other. I mean, brothers don't see each other now, and it's
Yes.
happening across the world. It's not even that. So I'm saying it's as countries progress and they get better and better financially, if these trends are happening and they get caught up in life and you did you talk to your for brother? No, I haven't seen him in a couple of weeks. Bro, you live down the block from him. I mean, how can you possibly not see them? I just have no time. This is actually a real thing. I mean, it's crazy.
Yes, it is crazy. And Hurricane, this actually gives me an opportunity to talk about some of the positive trends that are actually happening in society because people are picking up on the sort of things that we're talking about at the moment. And so marriage, for example, is becoming much more popular and is starting to be on the rise for the first time in decades. People want to spend time together. And I want to talk about the coffee culture. So the coffee culture, yes, we like our coffee, but coffee is not the real aim of coffee culture. The aim of coffee culture is that you actually get to sit across from somebody, you get to look in their eyes, and you get to share words with them. And it becomes a moment, a shared moment between human beings. And we're really starting to see a rise of people, Hurricane, that are starting to see that the last 20 or 30 years were a bit of a mistake, all right? That we went too far in one direction because we gave up too much. We gave up too much family. We gave up too much of our friendships. We gave up too much nature. And what did we give it up for? We gave it up for online series, screens, and big careers and money. And it all comes back to that. And I think, Hurricane, that we're getting back to a balance. And that's why we're starting to get legislation that says, let's have less of these smartphones. We're getting people that'll get together and say, what can we do so we can actually talk to each other and look each other in the eye? And I'm a bit older than you are, Hurricane, so I'm going to show my age by saying that when I first started to work in factories and get small jobs, I actually looked forward to going there just to socialize with the people. And so workplaces are starting to open out and see that this whole idea of putting a screen in front of every person is actually ruining our quality of life. And so if we can have more and more activities that are team activities or where people are open to each other, these things are starting to gain traction. Let me not get too enthusiastic because it's only early days, Hurricane, but really one of the most pleasurable and interesting experiences that the human brain can have is to be with another person, just talking to another person. So we're going to start bringing back those experiences because our brains will get bored without each other.
Well, Doctor, thank you. And in different shows, I've talked to experts, and you're right. The idea. Listen, I've been in sales, right? So sales is a personal touch. I've been in hospitality.
It's a
It's a
person job. That's
it's a
right.
personal touch, right? You got to be, able to build that rapport, to connect with people, and you're not going to do it, remotely. As a matter of fact, when you do demos and stuff through Zooms, whatever, it's not the same as when you're actually in person. You get to mingle with the people, have stuff with them, talk to them. As a matter of fact, some top-notch, executives, they do tend to kind of try to test their new partners and whatever out there by just pretending they're not there, or they just actually test them out outside of the stuff to see their behavior, whether they want to even, break bread with them. And so there's technique there, but you do want to, like, if I'm talking to you in person, I mean, you and I, we met in person, so we know, we felt, the energy and everything. So it's not just this Zoom thing over, like, multiple zones, like you're in the future, I'm in the past here. but
Yeah, yeah.
it's different. So when even in sales, right, you want to look at people. I mean, it's almost unnecessary. When you talk to someone, you got to look at their eyes. You don't, look this way or the other. It just kind of turns people away. And you're right. So, but I love the idea that we're changing back. There is a trend backwards, because I think people are realizing this, like they're losing the touch. And I want to just to add one thing to the discussion, because I don't want people to misread us here. Listen, folks, we have followings, we have people, we are on social media. I've met people from social media that I met in person through social media. So I can tell you there's nothing wrong with that. It's how you use it. I mean, ultimately I think that's what it is. I've actually, I like some people myself, like on social media, and I've requested to meet with them because they were just so cool, and I'd like to see them in person and just say hi to them. Not for anything. I mean, we hear these things all the time, right? And there's nothing with that. So you can build that, but there's nothing more than when you're actually in front of people in person, see them, get to know them. It's just a different touch. The energy is different. You can see them, whether they're the true self. As you said, they're not going to be in a particular. I mean, when you go to a boardroom, everybody's spiffed up nicely. But you go with them on a golf course, or you go with them on a beach, or some. We do have a test run. If you really want to see someone for their own and see them for true, travel with them.
Yeah,
That's
right.
going to be the ultimate test. I mean, travel with them, then you'll get to see whether they're really going to be the balance or not. They're going to be the ones that you want to hang out with or not, because their behavior is going to be exactly as authentic as it can be. They cannot hide it no matter what, especially if you're going for a distance or maybe camping or whatever. You can see people in that. We have that, and we have also the concept of doing business with someone. If you do business with someone or
Yes.
lending money to someone, those are three areas where you can really identify how people really are. But we are social creatures in real, not social
Yes.
creatures in social media. Social media is just another tool, but if we do it right, we can still get, comfortable. And of course, with social media, there's risk, there's security, there's all kinds of stuff that's happening. We've always, heard, horror stories as well, which can happen also in person. But the idea is that we're not anti-social media, but we are also pro-social real life, if you want to
Yes,
call
no,
it
that's a good way of putting it, Hurricane. Because you and I are, we're blessed. Okay, you're in sales and business, which is people. Um, I take care of people, and I love working with people. It is those times with somebody that makes a difference. But the reality is that there are many, many people who have jobs at a desk in front of a screen. Now, the thing that doesn't change is having family, friends, and I want to talk about meal times, because every meal time you have to imagine that around the whole world, somewhere around 6 o'clock every evening, people stop what they're doing and they have a meal. Now, if everybody's doing that, that means that everybody's available to do that. So rather than have a meal by yourself in front of a screen, see if you can find somebody else who's having a meal by themselves in front of the screen and go and visit them for dinner time every evening. It could be somebody in your own apartment block where they just have a meal 6 o'clock every evening or 7 o'clock, whatever the time is, and they're going to do it every day, and you're going to do it every day. So, what I'm saying is bring back dinner time, bring back the time when we share simply doing something that is basic to all of life, feeding each other and feeding ourselves.
Well, thank you, Doc. And by the way, I just want to add one thing, Doctor, is, you know, listen, you have your work. That's a great, a concept that you said about the idea that people who actually work in silos in this booth, right, and just have a screen and that's all. I mean, especially after COVID, I mean, a lot of people have not even returned to work and they work from home and they may not even interact with anyone. Everybody's doing their own thing. They got a unit in their computer, whatever. They spend 8 hours in there, and that's all they do. It's very difficult. But I think if we all adopt the idea of that, hey, listen, I have my hour for the gym or my hour, take my time off and go out, drop the phone, don't take the phone with you. And that's a practice I do. When I go to places, I mean, so I have this problem. People actually complain like they cannot reach me because I choose not to respond to people. Like I'll make a joke with my friend and I say, listen, there is a message that I say on my voicemail says, I'll get back to you at my earliest convenience. Well, so when it's convenient, I'm like, I mean it, right? It's not, once I get you to your phone, to you, I want to give you the time. Because if I'm distracted, right? I'm not going to give you anyways, the time and, the attention that you deserve, right? So at the end of the day, it's not going to benefit you if I'm just distracted. I want to get my time. When I'm ready to talk, I talk because that's the whole thing. Otherwise, I'm going to be talking to you, but my mind is like firing up different ways and I'm not even listening to you. So what's the point? So it's practices, folks, that we need to adopt. And if we do it right, we can balance it out. There's nothing wrong with it. Everything is balance in life. If we can balance it right, we're good. If we don't, that's the struggle, I think. And I love what you said, Doctor. You work with people. So you've seen this and here's if there was a person on this planet that can understand how we behave, that would be you.
It's so nice to say, Harry.
But it's true, right? I mean,
Well, I love working with people, all right? And there's just something about people that we all actually like. And so, yes, the basic message is that we do need to look at taking care of people, but we're actually getting out of this phase where we've left each other for a while, and we're starting to see that all the things that we do to socialize together are not added extras. That's life. Life is lived in and out of relationships. And I just wanted to say something about COVID. If there's one real positive that came out of COVID, and that's that as a species, we started to appreciate each other again. We started to rediscover each other. If it was a person that, let's say, is your spouse that you only used to spend a little bit of time with during COVID, you spent a lot of time with. If it was a joy of children, the studies actually show that we liked being with each other. And one of the reasons that people didn't want to go back to work after COVID was so that they could be around people again, so that we can start having a tribe of people around us, because it was pre-industrial revolution times that families used to stay together on a farm or whatever situation they were in, and they went through life together. This idea that we go off somewhere to go to work only came in since the industrial revolution. And we can actually solve that with the wonderful technology that we have, including social media. But as you say, Hurricane, using it in the right way for the right reasons so that we as a social species can thrive again.
well, thank you, Doc. And it's funny you said that because
Yeah.
I do, like I used to say this in trainings and stuff, right? We spent more time, at work. Literally that became the family because you
Yeah.
actually there are divorces that actually started because the folks were so busy working and spending more time with their colleagues than the actual spouses and or their children. It's funny how that kind of affected. And you're right. So in COVID, I think what happened is people like found, hey, I can do this. And while staying with and attending to the family members and still kind of perform and demonstrate that I can do the job, and it was successful. And a lot of companies have even done without spaces because it made sense for them.
Yeah. Yeah. And one of the biggest punishments we could do to each other is to leave each other alone. That's why solitary confinement is outlawed in a lot of countries because it's seen as too cruel to take away human contact. So what we can do is be with each other, not exclude each other, and even nurture each other. I just lost, there was something else that I was going to say. It may come back to me, Hurricane. Sorry.
No, you were talking about just isolation, and we are a social creature. We need to be with people, and to your point, if you lose your mind, literally, if you're by yourself, and we've seen that. I mean, what is that movie, Cast Away with Tom Hanks, right? I mean, he's standing
Yeah.
with his phone for a minute. I mean, he's talking to Wilson, right? I mean, you can definitely lose the cool if you're really just by yourself. I mean, we're meant to be in a pack. We're not. Listen, again, I always say this: I'm an only child, so I can survive alone, but I can't really live alone. See, that's the difference.
Yes.
you
Yes.
know, it's you can handle yourself by yourself because you have not been attached to a lot of people when you were growing up. But at the same time, you can't live without having encounters with other people and mingling with other stuff. So you can have fun with it, and it's a different story. And I know people that cannot even live without people. They have to
Yeah.
have someone with them at all times, otherwise they don't thrive. So it is an interesting concept for us as humans. That we need to socialize. We just have to do it the right way and know it with balance without losing the real, I guess, aspect of it, right?
Yes, and I suppose this comes back to the question that Agnes from France asked: why we make comparisons with each other on social media, because we see appearances. Because you and I at the moment, we're projecting an appearance, and this is not the reality. The reality is actually your spouse and your kids at home. My spouse, my kids at home, the friends that you have that you can keep. That's the reality. So it's like you say, it's using social media, but also socializing in reality, and that's the way we'll thrive as human beings.
Well, Doctor, thank you so much. I mean, first of all, we're at the top of the hour here, so I have more questions, but we'll just push them to the next session, which will be the last Friday of September. So, folks, stay tuned for that one. And again, do send your questions. Again, Doctor is always open, and I have not seen him not respond to a question. Doesn't matter what it is, he will find a response. He will connect it to the mental health, and he'll get deep dive on it and give you something to operate with in the real world. And yeah, sometimes we touch on things because I mean, mental health is mental health, folks. I mean, there's no, we all need it, right? I think we need it more than sometimes physical health. Because if we do it right here, everything else can follow well, right? So there's a big, connection there. Doctor, as always, it's a pleasure. Thank you so much for being with us, for all your, great, input here. Thank you.
Thank you, Hurricane. I look forward to next month.
All right. Well, that's it, folks. This is the end of this particular show. You can catch the replay on social media and everywhere else on the radio, as well as on the podcast, wherever they play. And we'll see you end of September. That's it. We'll be talking soon. Bye for now.